Okay. I don't know. That it seemed like the intro played forever and ever. Coach Schuman here with Coach Depascale. As always, we're glad to talk to you more about what's going on in football today. We have a great guest today, Coach Johnson, the head coach from Green Hope High School in North Carolina. Before that, I think he spent a couple of seasons at Northwood where he took the team to the playoffs there. And he really has done a great job. One of the up and coming young coaches in the state of North Carolina. Without further ado, let's introduce Coach. Coach, how you doing?
Good, man. I tell you what, that intro you guys have, I feel like I'm about to watch an action movie or something, man. Those shots of you guys, like that's top notch. That's when
Listen, we do everything right, Coach. We bring the energy right from the jump. You're talking two New Jersey guys. We still got to go back to our days of being in the club and whatnot.
Hey, man, I know I was ready for y'all to start, punching the beat or whatever that you hear from. Now I'm gonna have to get up to Jersey.
Hey, you were close, right? We talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely gonna have to get up there. I've only been in the airport there in Newark, so I haven't really spent any time in New Jersey. But it's definitely
that's not. Listen, don't take it for what it is with that. Don't judge it by that. Don't judge it by that.
Oh no, hey, no judging at all, man. You just if you ever fly through Charlotte, you already know your plane's gonna get delayed or canceled. So don't judge us for that either.
100%. Anyway, either way, Coach, appreciate you taking the time, man. We're excited to talk to you.
I appreciate y'all.
Coach, talk about your background as a player and coach, and so we can get into that and just kind of get a good feel for your background, and then we'll roll.
Yeah, so my name is Mitch Johnson. I'm the head coach at Green Hope High School in North Carolina. Just started there middle of May, actually right before the dead period was supposed to begin last year for spring ball. But I'm a military kid, so I've moved around a lot. So I'm not shy of going to new places and being the new guy or being an outcast. But that I just finished up my 12th year of coaching, my 8th year of being a head coach. It was our first time not making playoffs, so that was a new one. But I'm just also a brand new dad last June, so a lot of craziness in 2024, but looking forward to 2025. But yeah, I spent a year at Northwood. Before that, South Iredell. We had got their first 4A win, which is the highest classification here. They had jumped from 2A to 4A and hadn't won a 4A in like 2 or 3 years. So we did that, and then wanted to get closer to home, which was Northwood, and first winning season in a decade. Made the playoffs, broke all the school records on offense. Before coming back to North Carolina, I was up in Appleton, Wisconsin, Appleton West, where we had our best 4-year run since they had won the state championships in the 70s. And I'm actually headed back there to see one of the kids that we coached possibly get drafted up in Green Bay, and that's also where all my family's from. But I'm not, so please do not call me a Wisconsinite. I was born in Illinois and just I'm a mutt. I've lived everywhere else, man. Don't hold it against me. And then before that, I had my first head coaching job out at Lake Mead Christian Academy, right outside of Las Vegas, which was an awesome program that was about to be done. And we broke all the records, finished second in the state that year. The only offense we didn't beat was Bishop Gorman when it comes to the state, which, I mean, that's kind of hard to do. But before that, I was with my mentor, Coach Metzger. I played football and baseball at Pinecrest High School, and so went back for him. And that's where I started teaching, and he helped turn our program around. And we averaged during my 4 times there, we were averaging 10, 11, 12 wins and getting to the second and third round playoffs. And the eventual state champs beat us. We had Dexter Lawrence, Bryce Love, and probably about 5 or 6 other NFL guys. So yeah, man, played football and baseball in college. So anybody that tries to say that you should only focus on one sport's an idiot. I was able to do it in college, and those guys doing it, man.
Really cool. Really cool. Yeah. Well, that's what was the school you went to again, college-wise?
So I started off at Greensboro College. So in the city of Greensboro, North Carolina, there are eight different colleges. So it's definitely a college town. And then I finished out my career and went up to a school called Eureka College up in Illinois. And what's funny is I almost transferred to Fairleigh Dickinson for my last year. I went and played summer ball up in Idaho, and a coach that had been there, and then one of my dad's best friends went there. And so it was one of those things that I almost transferred out there to spend my last year. And I wasn't feeling the Midwest anymore. But when I saw the price tag, things things were a little bit different because it wasn't a complete full ride.
Yeah.
So it's a little different. But no, so it's kind of funny that you guys reached out because it's just, I hadn't really talked to anybody from New Jersey since then, but it was something I was definitely looking forward to because just any chance to see this beautiful country and go different places, and I just thought it was going to be a good fit after going out there and meeting one or two of their coaches, and I really liked the vibe, and I felt like I connected with that energy, and so because I'm an energy guy, if anything is never failing, I'm going to have energy. So it was one of those things that almost ended up in New Jersey, man. Everything was sent in and everything, and then when I got that final price tag, it was one of those things I had to sit down with the family and pray.
It's a little different.
Yeah.
Listen, we know all about the price tags up here. It's a little different. It's a lot. There's a lot of smaller schools within the state itself. Look, we obviously have our state school, Rutgers, which is Big Ten, and then you have obviously like where I am right now at Monmouth University, which is a high-end FCS. But then you have a lot of like D3 programs, right? Like FDU or Montclair State, Kane, Rowan, William Patterson. So the Northeast, that's kind of how it is. And we've talked to a bunch of those guys, whether it be D3 guys or, FCS guys. So it's a little different when it comes to that. Like you want to talk Ohio or Florida, it's like D1 or bust. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so
for sure.
Up here, there's a lot more opportunity, I guess, to play, at that next level. But it's not what everybody thinks it's cracked up to be. You know what I'm saying? But there's definitely those options here that if you want to keep going, you can, but it's going to be on your own dime, So it's a little different.
Yes,
Coach, your coaching career, man, you've been in a lot of states, a lot of different like structures to it, right, Dave? And we talk to guys from all over in terms of, hey, we have spring football or, because we don't have that in New Jersey. That's not like a thing. Like you're not even allowed to talk to your guys until the spring season ends. That's a little bit different in terms of that. How does it work with your guys? Do you have a spring ball?
Yeah. So here in North Carolina, you get 10 days of a spring ball. And the most successful programs, they have their kids all year round in a weightlifting class or 2 weightlifting classes. We're still working on that. We're at one of the highest academics schools in North Carolina, if not the country. And so those kids take a regular ed class, and that GP that hurts their GPA. So we're trying to get over that idea of that taking weight training is going to hurt you when it comes to your GPA and your college transcript. But but when I was in Wisconsin, it was the same way, man. I was lucky. I was the strength coach of the school, so we had our guys work out every day, Monday through Thursday throughout the year. But we only get 5 contact days in Wisconsin. So that really
Listen,
does
at least you get that. We don't even get that. You know what I mean? Like we don't even get anything. What we can do is we can contact, and this is something that's kind of recently come about. We can contact college coaches who are on the road recruiting and say, hey, if you're going to be here Thursday, we can now go and put together like a little workout, something of that nature, right? But there has to be a college coach on campus, So the rules, look, it's kind of like, hey, we want the best for our kids and to put them in the best situations, but we kind of don't even do that. You know what I mean? It's really, it's tough. Like most schools don't have football or an athletic period like built into their day. Like a lot of schools, we talk to guys from Texas and, the first block of the day is football. They have their kids, and that's not even getting into the facility aspect of it where, who's got an indoor, who's got their field, who's got all those kind of things. So it's challenging, but at the same time, multi-sport guys are really big here, right? Like wrestling, football, lacrosse, baseball, track, like, most guys do something else because you have to factor in up here, right? And we talk about it all the time, Dave and I, like weather comes into play, right? Like we can't be in Florida where, hey, we can just go outside anytime we want. Christmas Day, we can go throw a ball. Like that's not feasible up here. So it's like, hey, you're probably going to get more from going to play basketball or going to do indoor track than it would, guys want to just, hey, I'm going to work out. Yeah, that's great. That's part of it. But go
be a
compete.
competitor.
Go do those other things that, maybe you're not the best. You might be the quarterback, but you're not the best basketball player. You have to come off the bench and learn how to be a teammate, and not the guy. Sometimes it's difficult for our kids. But yeah, man, it would really be nice to get our guys for at least like some type of day in the spring, it's probably why we have to go so hard in the summer. Everybody
Yeah.
feels like they need to catch up, right? And
Yeah,
then that turns into like a whole thing of like, now you're every day in the summer and you're trying to do that. And, it's just different. It really is. It's hard, but at the same time rewarding. The kids understand it and they kind of know like, where they're at and role wise.
Yeah, and then when I was out in Nevada, it was pretty much, as they say, the Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
We in the summer when I got there, we went, I think like 7 to 11, 4 hours Monday through Thursday, no holds bar. And if anybody wanted to come in Friday, I was willing to do it because I was getting paid hourly during the summer.
Oh, nice.
To come on in, yeah. So I was doing that, but I also for like an hour every day, we laid out a nutrition plan of what to eat. How to do all that. And, I mean, that's how we made that jump. You're talking about 2 wins in 10 years. Then we got there and we went 7-3. Kids bought in, and it's just a change in the mindset and the lifestyle to realize what it looks like. And I have like two of those players are now coaching at FBS level. One was at UNLV and now at Purdue. So, I mean, that's pretty rewarding. And still talk to them to this day. And whenever they're looking for kids, they call us, and, that's pretty cool to have those type of connections. I mean, that's, at the end of the day, we talk about what's best for the kids. And my biggest one is, as much as I want to win games, I believe I'm winning, in life. And the most rewarding thing is when kids hit me up, like here we are, a kid possibly getting drafted. You're going to go hang out with him on possible one of the coolest moments of his life up in Wisconsin, hearing from guys from Lake Mead and then my one running back who was at Minnesota Duluth, now at Winona State. He's going to come stay with my wife and I down North Carolina to train with us for a little bit. And he did that when we first moved down to North Carolina. So it's those connections. I got Gus Ritchie, who's at NC State, who the first, one of the first people to ever, outside of our family, to take a picture with our son that was born was him, and our son just like 3 months old, just like looking up at him and like, so it's just, there's just this energy that we try to bring because, man, at the end of the day, what do you want your tombstone to say? Do you want it to have your resume, or do you want it to have, all the good you brought in the world? And that's one of the things that this past year, now winning a game, as much as we all say it, I had to finally live it and mean it because, I mean, 0-10 is rough. I never went through anything like that in my entire life. But, the one thing that I can definitely say is now we've been in those trenches together with these guys. And I bet you we're building connections beyond anything that we've ever imagined that those kids have been a part of. And then even as us coaches, because, a lot of tough moments there.
Yeah. You
No,
learn a lot,
no doubt.
like when you're not winning.
Talk about when you had that program that you built up and they were about to be gone. Talk about what you did there to improve that program and get them to the level that they did when they got to the championship.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things was the people I brought around us was, and it's just crazy, man. This is, I'm strong in my faith, and God just brought me an amazing staff. So my defensive coordinator played down in Mississippi College and played for Dana Holgerson. So he was really bought into the offense that we had, obviously, because, it's the same type of offense. And I think, trying to remember who was the defensive coordinator. It might've been, was it Mullen? One of the guys that had been at Florida was his defensive coordinator, so he brought that type of intensity. And then the best thing that has ever happened to me was he invested into me and gave me a secret, the workout plan at UCF with Scott Frost was doing, where they were going to build athletes. They weren't able to get the 3, 4, 5 stars, but they were going to make their kids athletic. And so that's the program that I've worked on here and there and really studied it when I got my CSCS up in Wisconsin. And we still do it to this day with obviously a lot of different adjustments based on what we got in the weight room. So we put the kids through that, and really bought into the weight room and boom, boom, boom. But so that was my defensive coordinator. I was able to bring in my dad, who is the chief of police out at Fort Irwin. So he would come and stay with me in my apartment. So obviously having family. And then I had another coach that was one of the big time developers in Henderson and Vegas. So there was one of those things like, didn't have to worry about money and he was always going to be there and was a strong guy in that school, in that church. And then I was able to bring a guy that had been at Lake Mead before. His family came back from San Diego and hired him. And so he knew a bunch of connections. And so, I mean, we were like when during the off season, like with him I was like his family and we would go to all the UNLV stuff, talking about sitting front row for football, basketball games. I mean, just unbelievable stuff. So it's one of those things of we put good people around these kids that were willing to put in the time. Then we bought into the weight room. We put in the work, simplified the offense, simplified the defense, brought in the fundamentals, brought in toughness, especially during the summer we're out that Vegas heat and we're running, and obviously being safe about it, but they learned how to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's what it was going to take in order to be successful and get to where they wanted to be. You're going to have to do things a lot different than they had been doing, because it obviously wasn't working. So it was just, a lot of groundwork. And then we had really good special athletes, and these guys that had been playing together, seniors out of 35, we were graduating, 18, like half of them, they had been together since Pee Wee ball, and they wanted to finish out strong. And so they got everybody bought in. 35 was the amount that they had like the year or two before that put together, and so we had guys that hadn't played and just put athletes out in space, man. And, the only school that we lost to was Lincoln County. If you look them up, man, it's one of they get like 2 or 3, 4 different counties go to that one school, and they run, the wing tee, triple option, buck sweep type stuff. And they're tough to beat. They went 4 or 5 years without losing. And they were even beating a public school that was in California that was part of our conference. So they were really good, and that's who we ended up losing to. But no, it was special. Like I said, when you build a program off of core values and you really live that out, put special people around them, they're willing to work hard for you, and you're able to get every ounce of potential out of them. That's how you can do some special things.
No doubt about it. When you build the program, what are some of the core things that you started with? Did you start with the weight room? Did you start with philosophy? Did you start with just getting them there? What were some of the things that you really did from that standpoint? And did you apply that to each place going forward after that?
Yeah. So, I've learned from my mentor about like a lot of different core values, and like I've adapted. But yeah, since the beginning, one of the first ones is we talk about love. Like love's going to be everywhere. It's overlaying like kind of message in our entire program that anybody can come play. And then that kind of goes into we're going to be a family. Because we're a family, we're going to have a standard of excellence to make sure that we're, make everybody proud of our family and don't do anything that hurts the family name. Then we talk about how do you do that? And it's going to be, a positive mindset, love John Gordon and all the books. And, we don't do energy vampires. We don't complain. We try to get no negativity, get on the bus and all that good stuff. And then our last one is just, we're going to have elite work ethic. We're going to outwork everybody, but we're going to have fun while doing it. And so those are our core values that everywhere we've gone, and obviously adapted to based on like once I know what the school is kind of about and all that good stuff. But yeah, we start off with there, and then we get into that weight room. This was the first time I didn't get in the weight room with the guys because our weight room was going to move from one room to another. We didn't have it all summer. And that hurt us because we're also the youngest team in North Carolina, minus like 1 or 2 of the brand new schools. I mean, we were at a 60. We had 30 plus were sophomores, only 8 or 9 seniors. So like we were super young. We're starting more sophomores than our entire conference put together at sophomores on their roster. And so we obviously didn't get into the weight room. And so it was just a bunch of football stuff. But I'm glad that we taught them the offense and defense, because I don't know how much the X's and O's knowledge that they had, not knocking the staff before us, but it was just, we're going to have to change the philosophy and the mindset. And once again, what we did at Lake Mead, obviously it was a little bit smaller ball, which, we ran into playing big boy ball here and just the inexperience. Like if we had the amount of seniors that I had at Lake Mead, obviously I think we wouldn't have had just, 0 wins. I think we could have been able to do something, but we, had a lot of ups and downs and growing pains. But I always believe with coming with that core value, the core values, laying down a foundation, setting your mindset, then getting that weight room to create a bond and toughness. And then, then it comes to that the building relationships through all that. And then you get out to that football stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big thing that, once you start to build those relationships, you build that bond, it starts to take things to the next level. What as far as, so what does like your off season look like? What does it look like right now? What do you have them doing from that standpoint?
Yeah. So we took a little bit of time. Our season ended first day of November. And we took all of November to be an evaluation period. So we had exit interviews, they had surveys to fill out. And then when we came back from Thanksgiving for those next couple of weeks, I was going to be gone to Hawaii 2 weeks after Christmas break. I did a delay paternal leave with having my son. All of December, what I started doing was we started doing these smart lunches. So our lunch is for about an hour, and it's completely open, and it's broken into 2 periods. so kids can go off campus. So what we started doing is we're having meetings during our smart lunch of like, we'll do program development, QB academy, offense or defense install, and then character development. And so doing the program standard time has been really beneficial. And what we've been doing with that in the leadership is we've been going through the book, Winning in the Locker Room First, John Gordon and Mike Smith, that book. And then like QB Academy, our first couple of academies, we're just talking about what it means to be a leader of the offense and sometimes of the program, and what happens when, you're taking it on the chin and you have to say, I made the mistakes, but then when things go well, it's the other guys, and just trying to teach them the we and me, we over me, and and the you over I type stuff. So we started doing smart lunches. And then, so I had about 20 guys during first period. So they started this program, and they started kind of feeding into the guys of like, hey man, you should see how much stronger even during the season we're getting. So then once I got back, we started our off season workouts with max outs and all that. So now what we do is we go Monday through Thursday in our first period, but then also after school, and the guys work out with me first period. They have the option, which is not even really an option. They just come after school and they start getting extra stuff done. And so we go Monday through Thursday from 2:30 to 4. And what we do is Monday and Wednesday is our upper body emphasis with power clean, hang clean, and bench type stuff with our chest. And then on Tuesday is our big squat variation stuff, and Thursday is our one-legged stuff. And what will happen is we'll work out from 2:30 to 3:30, and then we'll go out and do some running, whether it's change of direction, sprint work, agility stuff, plyometric stuff. And so that's what it looks like right now. And then we'll max out after we maxed out and had unbelievable numbers. Some of these guys, you wouldn't believe me. You would think that I was making it up, but we got all the data for it. We use Rat Coach. And then what we do is May 12th, we start our spring ball. So then what that is we'll go from 2:30 to 4 for 9 days, and then we'll have a spring scrimmage, and then we'll have a parent meeting right afterwards, and we'll also feed the kids. So that's pretty exciting stuff coming up. But then we go into a 4-week dead period until we can get started with our summer until June 16th.
Very cool. Very cool. That's a great, real organized, busy schedule. What is the, like, as far as the football environment from like the youth program up, like how does that work, and what's the feeder there from that system?
Yeah, so it's kind of a mess. And what's funny is I have, since I've gone to North Carolina, I haven't really had a well organized group down there, and so it's been a big problem. The problem is that we're in Cary, North Carolina, and so we're right there by Raleigh, Durham, just in a big Wake County that's kind of just a mess. There's not any middle school as a direct feeder into a certain high school. So it's something that we have to deal with, and it's districted, but it's also they get their choice, all kinds of stuff. So one of the things that have been big on this offseason, I've been talking to the couple of middle schools that are major feeders. Hey, off. Sorry about that. Couple of feeders and getting their coaches involved. Just come to our youth camps, come to our practices, getting a roster from what the kids are. And we cannot go onto campus because they have this option until May 15th, because that's the day that they can now designate where they're going to go to high school. So now it's not recruiting. But I will tell you that there's probably recruiting going on, but I don't break the rules. I'll be honest with you. I believe in whatever God puts through those doors at Green Hope, that's what we're going to work with. But what we're going to do is, 1 second. Hey,
you're good.
German Shepherd, man, barks at anything that
That's
walks
it.
by.
You need a friend, though, Coach. That's the best cut drill around, dude. You just bring the dog and have the guys cut off the dog going full speed. That's
don't worry.
I've
made that joke and told them, like, hey, if we're not going 100%, I will be bringing the German Shepherd tomorrow, and I will be putting snacks in your pockets.
That's it, buddy. That's it. Listen, and look, I think one of the hardest things, and Dave's done it, right? Like when you're building a program, is to kind of get there and get that youth program on board, right? Like those middle school coaches, or just like the vibe that kind of goes with it. Because a lot of it's unknown, right? And we kind of see that a lot too with like, we have like, we run a 7-on-7 club team with the parents and whatnot. And it's always about like, where are we going to go to high school, or what are we going to do? And like, I think just like, and even Dave can attest to it, he's over a bunch of programs that, to be honest, weren't in the best shape, and he just takes them and builds them. And he'll be the first one to tell you that one of those foundational points is once you get the culture of your team going in the right direction,
Mhm.
it's about now getting that youth program or that feeder program or those people involved to just kind of see it, understand it, and then ultimately like make it something that appeals to those guys that they want to go there. They don't want to look elsewhere because look, at the end of the day, you would love to stay home and play with guys that, you know, you've been playing with your whole life, right? But you have to make that appealing,
Yep.
right? Like you can't just come in there and expect those guys to go there because that's where they go, right? Especially if it's a sounds like a place like you where they have options to go to other high schools
Yep.
and whatnot. Coach, what is the size of your roster right now? Like how many guys do you have within the program itself? Do you have, you know, like what we have up here, which is like a JV and then a freshman team? Like what's the makeup of your roster? What do the numbers look like?
Yeah, so North Carolina, we used to, when I first started, we actually had freshman teams, but that's kind of gone away now because obviously the dip in numbers that football has seen, especially since COVID. But we have 65 total returning. We had
Got it.
100, but we, like I said, we cut. If you aren't about playing football and doing the hard work, we don't want you. Just being
Right.
honest, because I don't want somebody that just wants it for Instagram pictures. You do no use to us unless you're a fundraiser baby.
Right.
But we want
Yeah,
guys
that's
that
what
want to be
Dave.
there.
That's one way to put it. I never heard it like that.
Yeah.
Fundraiser, baby. I like that, Coach. I like
I
that.
mean, hey, it's one of those things of, you gotta understand that us coaches, we're away from our families and you're going to be away from your family. And is that something that the kids, do you want that? Or are you more worried about taking pictures and then going to go hang out with your friends, right afterwards and not worry about what just happened with our games? And that's a lot of what we were dealing with, especially on the JV level. So we have 65 returning guys and we will have between 30 and 40 incoming freshmen. And then we're also in a
That's
unique
huge. That's
situation where
nice.
we're in a unique situation for one or two high schools where we're their overflow. So if they're capped and they have
Oh,
anybody trying to come in, they'll come into us as
wow.
well. Yeah. So we're in a good
That's
situation.
interesting.
Yeah. It's different. And like I said,
So
it's
so
been,
you have high schools around you, Coach, that if the enrollment is a certain number,
we cap it.
whatever's left goes to you.
Yep. Right now, that's how it's done for in Cary, North Carolina.
Wow.
Yep.
Oh my,
Yes, sir.
wow, that's interesting, Dave. Holy hell! I mean, look, we have high schools up here. We're kind of in a system, they're by groups. Group 5 is the biggest. 4, 3, 2, 1. You kind of trickle down.
Yeah.
Your group ones, maybe you're working with a roster of 30, 35, whereas you could have and then obviously we have the privates and the publics are
Yep.
separate when it comes to the playoff system. They kind of divvy those like into two groups of privates or parochials as they call them up here. And those are the
Yeah.
guys that can, recruit and do those. A lot of them are based in North Jersey. Those are like your bigwigs that you see nationally, your Bergen
Yeah.
Catholics, your Don Boscos, right? Like the guys that you see and know. But what we've seen here is a trend. We're more central Jersey-ish, I guess, if you
Okay.
want to call it, kind of by the beach, the shore area.
Oh,
And
nice.
then what's below us, right, in South Jersey, there's a lot of really good public school teams because there's not so many private schools
Yep.
down there. And it's almost like a Philly type thing, right? Like it's
Yeah.
more Philly than it is kind of Jersey. But what we've seen is those schools are more regionalized where like a lot of towns go to a high school. So you have
Mhm.
a bigger flow of public school kids, but they've really upped the ante in terms of like they're competing like they're going hard, right? Like,
Yeah.
and we now like in recent years have the playoff system's a little different. Like they play one extra game and now you have a true like group champ. So you'll have a
Love
group
it.
1 champ, a group 2 champ, a group 3. So you're literally playing down to the biggest, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it used to just be like sectional, like you won the North, you won the Central. Now it's like, no, you're the true group champ.
Yeah.
And it gets, look, it's different here too, because obviously like weather plays a factor when we start our games. Our first game of the season is pretty much nationally week 1 or week 2 of everybody's games. Like a lot of people start that last week in August. A lot of teams here, you can choose to do that, but a lot of teams here don't start till like the first week in September. And then
Wow.
you're playing until December,
Yeah.
which adds a different element to it, right?
It
Because it
does.
gets cold, dude, and like the weather starts changing, and like there's a lot of other factors that go into it. But it's really interesting, and we talk to a lot of guys how things are set up like that. But what it really comes down to, and you said what, it's like you're a what, a 4A, and that's the largest size that's
And
in
we
North
just went.
Carolina.
Yeah, we just did reclassification, so we're now an 8A. We're so there's a big 32, and then there's the rest of the 7 classifications. So we are number 20 of 32 size wise.
And then when
So I
you
have
were in
2,300
Nevada
kids.
at Lake Mead, right? Like, how does that work? How big was that school?
So Lake Mead was on a multiplier because it's a private school. So we had
Got it. Okay.
125. So we went into a classification where you couldn't have more than 250.
Wow.
Yep.
Could you imagine that, Dave, having a roster like that, buddy?
That's a lot of Well, North Carolina, like, do you guys don't have cuts, right? Or do you have cuts?
Nah, fundraiser babies.
Yeah.
Oh, so that fundraiser. Oh, I get it. Oh, okay, that's right. All right.
So
good.
you can choose, coach, to cut or not if you want to.
So the biggest time that you'll ever see anybody get cut is if they are probably a problem child type. Otherwise, you try to keep everybody because that all of a sudden just if you start becoming a team that cuts, you're probably going to be hearing it from admin and parents, and it's not worth that mountain to die on, man.
Got it.
No,
Makes
I know.
sense.
The rosters were like in some places like Lake Norman. I know that they like cut. You know what I mean? In North Carolina, they cut rosters. I don't know if they still do.
So that's like a district-based thing, Dave. Like just depending on what school you're in, they may okay it or not okay it.
They had so many guys, I guess, on the team.
Right. Because honestly, think about it. I mean,
if you can't have enough helmets.
Even if you want to think about logistics, like I got to have 250 helmets, you know what I mean? Or whatever like 250 jerseys. And then it's like, now we're not even talking about.
To blow your mind? So the high school I was at that I graduated from and then I went back and helped. All right. Our head coach I'm telling you, he just knows how to turn programs around. We had 250 kids in our program. So we had 2 freshmen, 2 JV, and a varsity. Yeah, that was when I was playing. When I got back there, that obviously numbers had changed in 2013. We still had 2 freshman teams.
Yeah, see, and look, like we talked to some of these guys in Texas, and it's like, look, freshman A, freshman B, JV A, JV B, and look, they also have a rule like everybody's got to at least see a snap. Like I can't even imagine what that's like. Just trying to get guys playing time. I mean, Dave coaches his son's team, right? Youth, right? Like 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and they have a rule like, hey, guys have to play a certain amount. And it's really difficult, like, because at the end of the day, football is still like a contact sport. Like, you don't want anybody going out there and getting hurt, yet you have mom and dad pushing to be like, hey, why is my son not playing? It's like, well, I'm saving his life. Like, like, and I always try to explain this, like, look, like if I put this guy in the game, what he does may factor into what happens to someone else.
Absolutely.
Right? Like this isn't track or wrestling where we're lining it up and it's you and no one else. Like if that guy doesn't do what he's supposed to, now this kid gets hurt. Are you going to go explain that to his parents that, he has a concussion because you didn't block the right guy? Like that's really difficult when it comes to that communication with parents. And Dave deals with it, on the youth level, like unlike anything he's ever dealt with when he was coaching high school.
Well, I bet. I mean, you're in a what they call the snowplow parent generation where they want to get rid of anything and everything that's going to create a hurdle or an obstacle from their kid being perfect because that's how they see them. They're going to be the next, whatever sport athlete or whatever. They're going to try and get rid of anybody in the way or anything in the way.
Well, yeah, the key is, I mean, like what I've been able to do and learn is that you got to communicate with your parents what the expectations are up front.
Yes.
And when you do that, then they understand, like, not everybody's going to love everything, but once they understand, like, kind of what you expect, they start to work towards that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, obviously, the sport is not going to be for them, on this team, right? So that's an important part, like setting those expectations. And obviously, it's a big deal in building a program is setting the expectations that you want them to start to reach for.
Right.
Because if you limit that, then and you don't do a good job of staging, where they are to what they're going to be, then people get false expectations and it's like your goal is always to win a state championship, right? That's always one of your goals. But when you list that, right? But when you explain, depending on the stage of your team, it's like you can't reach these goals until you get to this goal, right? So
Building
you
blocks, stepping
it could
stones. Yep.
be you could be saying, hey, everybody's got to make it to the weight room 3 days a week or whatever, and then this, and then this, and then this. If you reach these things, then you're going to have an opportunity for this thing. But if we don't reach that, then you'll know why we didn't get to where we need to be, right? So, and that allows them to like get measurables and tangible things, and that's why I always loved like stickers and like
Yeah, the
helmet
helmet
stickers.
awards. We always did that.
Yeah, I always loved that because you could probably tell based off of how if you do your helmet stickers the right way, how your team's performing based on what level of helmet stickers they're getting versus the others. I always said when I have teams that were really good, they couldn't even put stickers anymore on their helmet because their helmet was filled, like literally was filled, and it would be like, they asked for like sheets that they could put their extra stickers on just so they could keep track for themselves, but like they would be filled. You know what I mean? So that's how you know that you're getting to a certain spot and with your program, and it was an easy way to track it. And if you're a kid on a team that didn't have too many helmets stickers, you
Right.
could track where you are. You know what I mean? So you can know where you got to get to. And I thought that was always a really good thing. And then once you get really good and the teams are filled with helmet stickers, then you got to figure out a new plan, right? You got to get a new plan that takes them to the next level, right? So,
Well, think about it too, Dave. Right? Like when we talk to Tony Holler, right? Like, what's his whole thing? His whole thing, what is it? Record, whatever, and publish,
practical.
right? Like,
To
it's
record,
all
rank,
about
publish.
like, right? Yeah, create a level of competition that's healthy, right? Like, look, nobody wants to be at the bottom of a list, right? So anytime you can do something of that nature to get your guys, wherever or like, you know what I mean? Like, and I think Dave said it great too. Like, this generation, they need to see a
Yep.
reward from everything, right?
Absolutely.
Like, it's the Y generation. Like, we played and our coach said, run through a wall, you ran through the wall, right? This generation is like, well, why are we doing this drill? Or why are we this? Or how is this making me like, you need to connect it to something that they can see or they can like touch, if that makes sense, and I think that healthy level of competition now gets these guys going, or the parents, right? Because now they see it. They're like, oh, he's third on the list. Now he's two on the list. Like any type of thing you can create within your program. I mean, in season and off season, right? Because to get those guys going and juiced for something in February when the season is so far away, any of those types of things like matter to these guys. And that's kind of, you have to do that or you're going to have a roster of guys that are just like, we're here to be here, but we're not really giving you anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so like we have our off-season team competition where we had a leader from each class, as a rising senior, rising junior, rising sophomore. So three of them, and they drafted our 5 teams amongst the kids in our program, and they compete. We have different kinds of ways that we compete out when we do our running drills. They compete for attendance. They compete. They'll go to sporting events and get some extra points.
Right.
We have them to where we post that competition throughout. They're posting during max out week, who got the most. And then what we'll do is last year we had a fundraiser, and after we had to pay our dues and all that, we raised $55,000. And one of the ways that we did that is we post it, and then this next year what I'm going to do to up the ante is if your team or you hit certain points, then I'll buy you, a hat, a shirt, a polo, whatever y'all want.
They love gear, don't they? They love gear.
And so that's every year I'm trying to find a way to up the ante. But posting that type of stuff of here's who's doing so and so. I've seen where we're at Max House and the guy was like, put 2.5s on each side, and I'm gonna try to beat this person, or I'm gonna try and beat my record. So it's one of those things of that's why we try to promote multi-sport athletes, and that's a whole nother thing that we can
you
talk
get an
about.
automatic group appointing for what it. So what we've done too, like if you make, right, because we give you got 5 days a week to make 4 days in the weight room, And if you go 100%, like 4 for 5 the entire month, like we create a t-shirt every month, right? And you get those shirts. And something so like
Yeah.
minuscule to us, to these dudes, like it's like, buddy, I got the shirt this month. Did you? You know what I mean? Like it creates that healthy level. You're almost tricking them into doing it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're building that, we're working for something. And it's not just, you're not going to get a reward right now. You have to
We're
work
all
for
Pavlov.
this. You know what I'm
We're
saying?
Pavlov. We're manipulating to get our way. Yeah.
Right. And then now you see it though. Look, because our head coach is big on it and firm believer. Like, look, like good teams are led by coaches, great teams are led by
Yep.
players. So now you see guys like, buddy, like you were only in there 3 days this week. Like that's not enough. Like we got
Nope.
to, like, you see them almost policing themselves,
Absolutely.
and that's where it becomes a whole different, you know what I mean, different game. I've never been a big believer in like naming captains before the season
Nope.
because look, it is really, really hard to be a leader or a captain nowadays, right? Like that whole respect factor thing, it's just
Yep.
not there.
It's not
It's
there.
really difficult for those kids. And some guys, like, look, just because they can go out there and make 10 tackles and have 2
Doesn't mean they're a
sacks and
leader or a captain
doesn't
material.
mean they're going to be a leader or a captain or
Yep.
even respected among their peers. Like
Yeah.
some of those guys that like are the leaders, they might only see a special teams snap. Like
Yep.
it's really kind of one of those things. It's interesting to track and look at and see those guys. I mean, look, some of those guys that as a junior, you're like, this kid's never going to play. And then all of a sudden, as a senior, he becomes this rock star because it's finally clicked. Like it
Yep.
just works in different ways for every individual kid. And as a coach, that's where I look at it like, look, it's your job to know your kids and your
Mhm.
program. And if you're not talking to every kid every day, or you're not at least saying like, if you don't know their names, like give me a break. Like what are we talking about here? Like that's your
I try to be
job.
as loud as I possibly can in the hallway when I see one of our guys to embarrass them, but then to also let everybody know that like, hey, it's a different energy. I bet you
Yes.
your coach isn't even in the building. I bet you your coach doesn't even talk to you when he passes. Some of us have different handshakes. We dap it up. We're
I
loud.
think that stuff's really important. And if the head coach ain't doing it, you got to have assistants that do it. And I think that's
And I'm
really
sure I annoy the
difficult.
crap out of a lot of people. And people, I know that my energy and stuff, like there's people that are at Green Hope that I know they don't like the style, but I'm
Of
at the
course
point in
not.
my life where I don't really care because it's lonely at the top, and I've said this to a couple people because I know there's been words said. I was like, you might as well, you better enjoy these moments that you can kick us when we're down, because when
Right.
we're up, you're not going to hear from me. You're not going to see from me.
Oh,
But
yeah.
just remember these moments, because you're going to have your moment right now. But I'm telling you right now, you better either get on the train or
Yep.
get out of the way.
Right. Like, hey, like you better get us now because once this thing's rolling and once we start picking up speed, like it's game over. And look, Dave can attest to it. Like he's done it at numerous programs where he's taken over when they've literally been at the bottom of the bottom and just like stayed the course and built it through
Yep.
whatever. And I mean, when you're tabbed the program builder, you know what I mean? Like that changes the game a little bit in terms of like how you do things. And we've seen guys like that. And look, there's a million ways to get it done. As long
Yep.
as you get it done and you're doing right by your kids, I think that's the most important. Guys want to put so much on wins and losses. Like, how about like the development of like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they're not playing college football, but this dude's going to West Point, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
And
or this
we have
dude,
Ivy
look,
League
even
guys.
like our program, like we have a lot of kids that like, look, they're not even like college kids. Like they're going to go in to trades, right? Like, so this guy's going to be fixing my car in 2 years,
Yeah.
or this guy's going to be running all the electricity in my house. Like I'm never going to have to worry about any of that stuff because that's like what my guys are. And I'm just as proud of them doing that
Yeah.
as if they were getting a D1 scholarship,
Yeah, no, we have a bunch of our guys. I mean, we're talking about 4 or 5 weighted GPAs, like perfect weight. They're fighting for 100s. They don't want a 95. They want 100.
Yep.
And super proud of that because, hats off to them. I never wanted to go to an Ivy League school because I would probably get flunked out or got kicked out the first day. I mean, that's just not who I am.
Well,
But
look,
I'm
Dave
super proud of
turned
the
down
ones that,
Princeton to go to UConn. So, you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like he was set to go and do all his stuff, but he made a different choice. So he sees that. He understands all that stuff, which is wild.
No, and so we're big into
me.
go to do all that stuff, and then like obviously me being a military brat, I promote
Yeah,
that
I mean,
too. But
that's
I'm
your
also
world, dude. You live that.
Yeah, I loved it. But then it's also like I've seen those guys that, they're off doing their thing, whether it's HVAC or whatever. And like, man, that's freaking cool too. Cause I can't imagine doing air conditioning in 100-degree weather and knowing how to do all that stuff. That's just not who I am. And I think that right now, that's the type of energy we're trying to, every school has their thing, and ours is a big academic one. And it's one of
Got
those
it.
things that we've tried to change the nerd or like the geek. Look, you're doing academics during this time, but when we get to football, this is your chance to unleash. Be who you
Right.
are. You don't have to be the good boy. You don't have to be, the quiet kids anymore. Like you're not in a classroom.
Right.
Come out and let's get to demon time. And it's one of those things that we've tried to change the energy of guys. Like, look, you might not be that prototypical Green Hope, go to Ivy League or have a 4.0. That's fine. Guess what? That's fine. There's so many different ways that you can make a living, so many ways. But all that we want is for you guys to be happy. And at the end of the day, anybody that is influential into you can say, man, I'm proud of so-and-so for doing that. Then that's what we preach to the guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the whole key is to be able to find a place that you feel you belong best. So, and school is not for everybody, and for some people it is, and some people it isn't. But I do think, the kids have to figure that out, and it's I do think that it's important for them to explore the option before they make a decision on that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's no doubt that they've got helping them to guide them as a coach in the to find their path is an important option for as a coach, because you don't realize, especially today, there's so many kids that are not sure about what they want to be or what they want to do, and because there are so many different things that are are available to them, I think it's one of those things that the more options you have, the more confusing it can be. So
Absolutely.
it becomes like that for kids, and coaches can really help with that. And it's the same thing with, like, you talked about, like, even with colleges, like, the way the world is now with recruiting, like, everything doesn't necessarily go exactly the way that they originally planned it.
Yep.
And they have to figure out how to decipher between the different options and schools they may never heard of that are recruiting them.
Yep.
And do they want to do that? So, and what they want their path to be, because that's changed a lot in football. And it's I'm sure it's got to be hard to explain to parents and your coaches, to parents, to the athletes,
Golly.
how to guide them, right? Like it's
Yeah.
the athletes and the parents are the parents are the obvious easy one, but even your own coaches, because they may not know. A kid may ask one of your assistants, and they may give information, not on purpose, obviously, because they just they try to answer something and they don't really know, right? And a parent then gets confused. So,
well, I think social media too, Dave, right? Like it's opened a lot of windows for people to see a lot of things that they never really saw. A lot of things were like geographical, right? Like if you're from the Northeast and you're kind of staying in the Northeast, with social media, they now see things like on the West Coast, in the Midwest, right? Like, I mean, shit, you can look at like even college conferences used to be geographical. Now you have, USC and Oregon in the Big Ten. Like,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of that going around. And look, we used to tell guys all the time, if you want to play college football and you're anyone like somewhat of a
There's a
player,
place for you.
we can find you a school,
Yep,
but you have to
absolutely.
be willing to go and do those things, right? Like maybe it's an NAIA in Kansas. And look, that's your option. And if you really want to do it bad enough, like that's where you're going to go and you're going to play. And it's really hard to get that through to certain parents because they only know what they know. And on top of it, like it's constantly changing, right? Like Dave and I have this talk about recruiting. Like if you're still a head coach that thinks recruiting is the way it was even 2 years ago, like you're so far behind the eight ball that it's not even funny, Like You have to constantly understand that and communicate that. And it changes so fast that if you're not up on it, you're behind the eight ball.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Talk about recruiting, coach, and what you have going on now, what you deal with from that standpoint, and how you kind of guide your guys through that.
Man, I tell you what a difference. Yeah, so we had a tight end Northwood that ended up going to NC State. Before that official commitment, there was 3 or 4 schools trying to flip him. I mean, I'm talking about all of a sudden you talk to one coach who's at the college, and then all of a sudden 2 hours later they're at the school, trying to flip. Like you're talking to them and they're on campus talking with the head coach or whatever, and next thing you know, they're at they're 5-6 hours away, but they're here on a flight 2 hours away. So and then when Gus was before the NC State commitment, I mean, we were talking about 10 schools a day coming in.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, ended up with like 50 something offers. But then you go to, I love Gus, but our best athlete at that school, our quarterback, he was number 8 in the nation until like week 9. I mean, he was averaging 7-8 touchdowns a game, running, throwing, and then had a special teams touchdown and a pick 6 and so, I mean, he was a dude, and he's 6'1", 205, maybe 5% body fat, just yoked out of his mind, can run a legit laser 4.5 and no offers.
Right.
Nothing but D2 offers.
Isn't it weird how it works like that? Like,
yeah. And I'm like, what are y'all missing? I mean, and then on film, we have him laying out 2 or 3 kids way bigger than him, laying them out.
Right.
I literally made sure that the coaches saw that. And guess what? That next play on a 4th down, after he did that, he's going to go be a quarterback and then runs a QB buck sweep for a touchdown. Like, what are we missing here? So you have that type stuff. And the one thing that I just dealt with yesterday is, oh man, this one will break your heart, is I'm starting to see football, unfortunately, might end up getting to where the NBA is. We're drafting and recruiting people off of their physical features instead of how successful were they or how good are they, and look at how terrible, and I'm sorry, it might be NBA fans, but the NBA is terrible to watch. There's a lot of guys that should not be out there, and there's a lot that are playing over in Europe that should be over here and have way better careers. And that's what I see going. I mean, I had a kid that's getting recruited that is nowhere near ready to play at the D2 level, doesn't even know football. But because they see a size, they're going to take that opportunity, which I guess is kind of cool if you look at it from his standpoint. But for me as a coach, I'm like, well, where was this the year before that with the kid I had? So it's definitely changed. But we don't have as many in-person visits now. I was
going to ask you, what's the foot traffic like?
Oh man, it's going to start picking up.
Because it's open now. It's like a portal just opened, and now guys can get on the road again. But
and that's the whole
you
thing
have schools coming through your building.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing is like right now is that you don't see as much as you used to because they'd rather go get a portal kid than a high school kid. And so that's another thing I try to explain to these parents is like, look, they're only taking maybe a couple of kids or one at a certain position, and I'm sorry that your son wasn't on number 1 on their list. And so what I tell our guys is, guess what? What I can do for a coach is I can control what I can control. I can talk about your personality. I can talk about how you are in the weight room, the classroom, but you have to control the classroom. You have to control your personality. When a coach has come through, you better be working out. You better not be on your phone. I mean, we don't even allow phones in the weight room, but you better be getting after because you get that one snapshot of 5 seconds where they see you, then they talk to you, then they talk to me. That might be, that's your only opportunity. And then they're going to show the film. So you better be playing your butt off because a lot of them don't, if they really are going to invest into somebody, especially a high school kid over a portal kid, they want to see the low lights. They don't care about the highlight. Anybody put together a highlight, they want to know how many times does that kid loaf, and is he going to be a cancer to our program? Because they're not going to take a chance on that. So that's one big thing that I've seen a huge change is what's important. And it's not always going to be your numbers. There's kids here in North Carolina. There's a quarterback down at Independence High School that I think was like over the last couple of years, the only quarterback better than him was Bryce Baker, who's going to UNC. And I think the kid is going to end up having to go to a D2. Like what? Just because he might not have perfect measurables, but Bryce Baker is going to UNC, like how many different offers he had, and a quarterback that is right there with him is going to go. And I feel for the coach. I think it's crazy when you look at the numbers, and you put this comparison of the stats together, and
not even close.
Like, where's his offers?
Right.
And so it's just, not even. And then he had finished the year before that to number 2 or 3 to Whit Neubauer, who ended up going to Mercer and being a dog right now as a freshman. And then another kid went to Catawba from that. This kid had better, and he's just going to go to a D2. I mean, it's just
right.
It makes no sense right now. But as a high school coach, you just got to control what you can control, and that's when coaches want to come through, show them everything. And talk the hype up for your kids, but be honest with them. And I think that right now, that's all you can do, because you see all these coaches on Twitter, drop your blah 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 blah. Don't waste your time on that. They're doing that to try and get, they're trying to do that to generate their tweets and to generate a little bit of publicity. They aren't really looking at that. I've yet to have one coach hit me up on that, and people can criticize me for that, but it's through connections.
Absolutely.
Because everybody knows the coach is going to do it, and players, you can do it, and hopefully maybe somebody will. But I try to drop those huddle highlights and all that stuff, and I haven't gotten anywhere with it, because if so, the running back that we had Appleton West, that was the number 1 running back at North Dakota State camp, and then goes to Minnesota Duluth, and now he's at Winona State. He wouldn't be at a D2 in the Midwest if people actually took a look at the film.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that maybe I'm biased, but that's just how it is.
Well, I think they take
100%.
a look at it when it fits the measurables. I mean, I think that's because when there's lots of if you think about it from a recruiting standpoint, you're getting it. See, in the old days, it was much more a coach you trusted. They told you about somebody. You obviously measurables still mattered, but there were you could get them in the door to talk to you about them, and so that was a different thing. But the big reason why it was different was they weren't inundated with all the film. See, in the old days,
100%,
it was hard to get film.
Yeah,
it was hard to get.
You would struggle to get that DVD.
You would struggle. Yep. And the only people that really would send you, like who was, if you think about it, you had to make videos.
Right. You had to actually put some work into it. Now any kid can do a huddle highlight,
Right. So what happens is you get, back then, for the most part, it was like it was an indirect filtering system, because it was so hard to put it together. You weren't going to bother unless you really thought you were a guy. You know what I mean? Now it's a twofold problem. So I think you're 100% correct that there are really good players that get overlooked, and I think that does happen a lot. And I think with the transfer portal, it definitely happens a lot more to high school kids than it used to. But even more so because of the fact that they're basically looking to get rid of players, to not bother recruiting them, because they're so inundated. Whereas before, it's almost like it's the same kind of thing.
It's going opposite now, right, Dave? Like, whereas you were trying to get kids, now you're trying to take kids away, because look, this guy's got a random highlight tape. We don't even know what he's made of, but he has a tape and he's sent it. Like, So that's where we see, like staffs at that next level starting to expand, where it's like, hey, you handle portal guys, you handle high school guys, check this guy off the box. Is he worth it? You know what I mean? Like,
I also think that they are in a situation where some of the coaches, I think you're right. They're not even looking at their own Twitter. Someone might be looking for, especially the higher level coaches. And those people who are looking for it don't really know what they're evaluating. So they're basically looking for, they click it. If it says a certain height and size and they click over to their Twitter page and everything lines up, then okay, let's put him into the system. I've had coaches, like I'm actually telling players more and more now that before they send that film to coaches on Twitter, to go on their questionnaire and get them in the database, because if you don't get into data, like it's all
that. You're right.
It's all getting into their
you have to
database.
get you have to get your name out there, like, and any way you do it, whether it's
And
coming
you're
to a
probably just going to
showcase
get a
that we
camp
run.
invite. That's the crazy part. The crazy part is they want you in that database first and foremost because they know you're probably not a recruit, okay?
Right.
And we want to invite you to camp because
100%.
if you think about the old camps, like I'm talking like when I went to Joe Paterno's camp back in the day at Penn State.
Right. Yeah,
we're talking
I went
like
to Rutgers in the second year that he was there. You know what I mean?
so those camps were huge money makers for the university, for the coaching staff. Okay, and that went away. So what I mean by like huge money, like when I went to the Penn State football camp, yes, it was a prospect camp, but you had to go there for 4 days. You stayed overnight. Like they worked you out for 4 days. Okay, like I remember it to this day. I was in 9th grade.
Right.
And
so different because they really want to see everything about you. How do
but
you
there was
carry
1,000
yourself?
kids, Derek. There was literally 1,000 kids there.
Yeah, and it's like, look, but Dave, it's also like, look, we talk about
$300 a pop, $300,000,
right.
3 sessions of that, 3,000 kids, $1 million were coming in. So
But
if you
remember,
think about it, well,
also to a point too. Go ahead.
Let me just finish. And the camps now those guys didn't make as much money back then, assistants.
No, of course not.
So they used that money for the assistants, right? But if you think about it, when they're trying to pay, it's not the high level assistants that need the money anymore. But now you got GAs, all these other guys. They're still trying to get these guys extra money.
Right.
So they don't have 5-day camps to be able to make $1 million, right?
Right, because
so
this kid's got to be at one camp and then he's got to go to another.
It's so you got to run like 5, 6, 7, 8 one-day camps with 1,000 kids at $80 a pop to get, and you're still not getting to half the money you used to get, right?
So plus, I also think it's an evaluation thing too, right, Dave? Like they want to see how you carry yourself, when you're tired and you got to go to lunch, or how do you are you going to stay up all night?
It was a long evaluation. It was a long evaluation.
Yeah.
Now, listen, they made a lot of money from that, much more money than they make now.
Oh, absolutely.
But it was really a long evaluation because this will blow your mind. But day one, we just like you would go to like a regular product. We came in, we ran the 40s. That was all they cared about at Penn State back then. We ran the 40-yard dashes. You raised your hand based off of what your time was. They put you in groups immediately based off of back then you did both positions. You did running back. I was a running back and I did running back and linebacker, right? They put me in both positions, right? I did both positions. For one, the second day I did running back. The third day I did linebacker, right? And we did 7-on-7. We did one-on-ones. We had periods of just those for like an hour. So it was crazy how different it was, okay? Like crazy. Now you're doing all that in literally probably 2 hours, right? You're doing that whole thing in 2 hours. That's why they're like, you know what? We got to put them in the questionnaire, like so we can send all these people to camp. It's still about getting money in the pockets of the assistants, but it's that the low level assistants now, I guess.
We're talking like, hey, the quality control guy or the the guy that's the other guy, like you have your DB coach, but now you have your GAs or whatever it is. Like you're trying to fill those gaps at the same look, it's why every Division I program, hey, here's camp number 1, here's our middle school camp, here's our specialist camp, this is the day of our 7-on-7. Like you see them roll this stuff out, and all of these opportunities are days you have to be there or want to be there, rather than just it used to be rolled into 1 3-day, here you go.
The one other thing that's really tough about it is in the information age, which is now you can get any information you want. Every parent kind of knows that they're going to this camp and they're really not going to get recruited. Now, whereas, listen, when I grew up, like the internet was just beginning. I think you went to a camp, you literally didn't know shit. You know what I mean? Like you didn't know what was going on, and you just kind of went from place to place. You kind of already know that's the hard part. That has to be hard to talk to your kids about, because they kind of know they're going to this camp, they go to the UNC camp, or they go to North Carolina State camp. They're probably not getting recruited.
No, yeah.
But everybody else is going there, right? So they're like, I gotta go. Like, meanwhile, they probably should be going to a Catawba camp,
That's
right?
I try to tell them, I try to be honest with them or try to go to these mega satellite camps that have 130 schools. Don't be going unless they personally invite you and they say, no, you don't need to pay. You ain't getting recruited.
Yep.
Like Gus. What was crazy about Gus, and that's one thing I learned after having a major recruit. If they really are interested in you and you're going to possibly get an offer or they have offered you, you don't sign up for the camp. You literally get the text where to be, and they just slip you on through there, and that's what it is. And so that was one of the things of why God took me to Northwood, was to learn more of the recruiting process. And now, obviously, like, there's probably going to people be like, oh, well, what do you know? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's always those haters. I mean, you're saying an information age, and everybody's story is different. But I try to tell the parents here is like, if they're asking you to pay for money, they're paying for their GAs. If they are legit about you, they would have already offered you, or they're going to shoot you a text of, hey, here's where to be. Please come to our camp. But if they're asking you to fill out a questionnaire, fill out information, there's probably a good chance you aren't high on their totem pole.
I think you're 100% right. And the only way you could overcome that when you go to a camp is if literally
show out.
You show out and at a level that is so different, meaning a ridiculous.
You gotta be different.
You walk in at 6'5", you're 6'5". Obviously, someone's going to talk to you.
Yep.
They'll watch to see if you can play for 6'5", right? But if you're like, if you look at the majority of even Division I rosters, most of the guys are between 5'10" and 6'2", right?
Yep.
Like, if you went through the roster, right? But they had something special about them as a player. But that's what makes it hard when you go to camp. It's like you said, if they're not already being recruited, you're probably in a situation where you're not even going to get looked at. If you're 6'1" and you're a great player, it's crazy. But if you just go to a camp and nobody knows about you, and you could be fast, you could run a 4.6, right? But you're not going to be the fastest. You're not going to be the biggest. You could be a great player. That process is going to be very long.
Yep.
And you may end up being a Division I player, but it's going to be very, very long. That film is going to have to be so good.
Yep.
They're going to invite you. They're going to invite you. They're going to be. It's this crazy dating process that's changed. Like, oh, come to the camp. All right, hey, can you come back and we saw the film. Dude, you really stood out. We want you to look at you again. We want to see, like, then they want to have 9 people stand next to you to see if you're really that tall, right? And measure you and like look at the size of you next to their guy at that current position. You know, like all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Because you can just jump into transfer portal now and go and find that 6'1" guy playing that position who played either at a lower level that's moving up or at the same level that kind of failed at wherever he's at, and maybe he can make it at another place. And it's crazy. It really is crazy. And we're not even talking about the money aspect of everything. Yeah. So just the transfer portal, and I think transfer portal in itself,
one and done,
is such a problem. It's a bigger problem to me than NIL, because I feel like eventually it's going to, and you see it with like Tennessee where they said no, and Fran Brown said no at Syracuse. Eventually people are going to start to realize what a player's worth. Yes, they overpay in the beginning, they underpay here, they overpay here. Okay. And they start to realize, okay, this is what a player's worth. But the problem is the transfer portal, right? So business economics tell you over time, you're going to figure out what players are worth.
Absolutely.
It doesn't happen right away, but like over the course of 5-10 years, they're going to start
starting to figure that out.
They're starting to figure it out now. They're like, hey, man, we
Michigan. How do you think all those boosters are going to feel paying Underwood $8 million and look at how he looks right now? Like I don't know. I think you're right. I think like unless Underwood, first of all, at $8 million to fulfill the expectations of that, it's wild.
That's probably impossible to begin with. Anything short of a national championship, it's not fulfilled.
And here's the crazy part. is we're not talking about where he's going to go and throw it 30 or 40 times. He's going to hand it off 30 or 40 times at Michigan. Like what do you think he's going to like? It's I don't know. I think it's crazy. I mean, and then you look at like Texas, where because that's I love the Badgers, but that's tough. There ain't really much of a model right now to look at. But Texas is my second one because I lived there for 5 years. You had Ewers, and then you had Arch, and then they had 8 4 or 5-star running backs. And guess how many of them have transferred out? None. Like, and then quarterbacks, they have like 2 or 3 other guys behind Manning, and they still none because they want to be a Longhorn, and and that's the whole point is it's not about the money, and it's just like, and now you're going to see, I think Texas with Sark is going to just continue to recycle, and be good.
I think that's a great point, because I think at certain places, like when you grow up in Texas, okay, you're either 100% you toe the line, meaning you love Texas, or you're a rebel and you hate Texas. You're one of the two.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And if the
rebel has a million different ways to go.
If you're in for Texas, then like you might be willing to wait because you just love Tech. Some of the players that are coming there are as much of fans of the university as they are not just obviously great players. So as long as you pay them a certain amount, which Texas can do, which Ohio State can do, right? But it's easy. Look, I look at it like this: if you're in the South, you're in the South, right? So you know this. If you're in the South, the weather's a little better. You can tolerate certain things better.
Yes.
Meaning if you're riding the pine and it's still nice and the girls are beautiful and you're doing decently in school, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna get there next year. It's tolerable. If you're in Michigan or you're in Syracuse or you're at
weather is terrible UConn, 9 months a year.
You went to UConn where it doesn't. You're like this is how it would be at UConn. All right, cold. 2 weeks before school graduated, basically third week in April. It's finally warm, and then you're out of school like 2 weeks later. You're like, wait a minute, like we finally get to enjoy it.
Well, I know that. That's how it was in Illinois, man. It was like the best months of the year. The best months of the year in the summer. I'm not going to be in freaking Illinois. I'm playing ball. One summer was South Carolina, then the other was up in Boise. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be there for that. Like I can go much. I mean, Boise was way better weather than. So it was just like, no, I get what you're saying. It is just
that creates like your tolerance level.
Yes, absolutely.
Like if you see other guys, and so I think that gives. Now listen, Ohio State has enough money that, and Ohio State is one of the few places, and Michigan might be another, but it's one of the few places where kids that grow up in that state are the same way. They're either all in for Ohio State or they're against, like just like Texas.
I mean, and that's another good example of Quinn. He goes up to Ohio State, and I don't think that he was like, man, why did I leave Texas? Why did I leave Texas? And I don't think it had anything to do with competition because, I mean, let's be honest, he probably should have been the starter. But, that's a whole here or there. But it was one of those things of why not just go back there, play for my hometown team, and then he righted his wrong. He admitted he did not go through the process the proper way. And, and he ended up back there. But then you can go to a Justin Fields, started at Georgia. He's a Georgia guy. But I think for him was at that moment, where was the best place for me to be? And it was probably Ohio State, with the way that the offenses are ran. And I think that that's the one big thing that being a recruit, if I'm thinking about putting myself in a recruit's shoes, and I did this with Gus, is you got to make sure that you love where you're going to go. The second one is you can't fall in love with a assistant coach. It's got to be a head coach, and you got to know what is their hot seat meter, like how long are they going to be there. But don't fall in love with an assistant coach because you don't know when they're going to be there, and like his big recruiter when he was getting recruited was Anai, who was the offensive coordinator at NC State. He's not there now, so like how much do you love it? And it's just like Wisconsin, all those quarterbacks they were bringing in. Phil Longo's their man. I love Phil Longo. It just didn't work in the Wisconsin system. And now we had to get a whole new quarterback room because Wisconsin, they don't want to tolerate Wisconsin. They did it for Longo. And so it's one of those things of just learning through it and trying to guide kids the right way. And now I might, sometimes it might sound a little bit crazy, but usually my theories feel like end up being correct. And I think it's one of those things that you got to love where you're at, the campus, know what your head coach's plan is, and hopefully they're transparent. And then don't fall in love with an assistant coach or a system unless it's promised that they're going to be there. And I think that right now, that's why Oregon with Lanning is killing it, because Will Stein, I don't know when he wants to be a head coach, but he's made it up through the system. And look how awesome that offense is. I mean, he plugs a quarterback in every year and they kill it, then just like down in Texas. Where would Sark go? I don't know if he wants to go back to the NFL. So maybe he's telling everybody, I'm going to stay in Texas. And he's going to call the offense. So that helps when your head coach is going to influence it. He's not going anywhere. He's getting paid. He's happy. He might not want to go up to the NFL. Why would you not go to Texas? And then you go to Texas A&M. I think people hated on them for going with the Elko pick. He's from there. Look what he was able to do. He did more with less talent than our boy, who had the number 1, 2, 3 best classes ever, and we're winning 4 or 5 games. And now you bring in Elko with a different mindset, and now Texas A&M is back. And so it's just, I don't know. I think that it's one of those things of you have to. Every kid's different, but as a coach, those are my 3 pieces of advice: is fall in love with the school, know what your head coach, whether he's going to be there or not, and then make sure that the system fits to you, but also figure out if that assistant is going to possibly move it on, because you don't want to go somewhere where you don't fit. And that's where I'm just like the Bryce Underwood, like, dude, like you could go to, I mean, goodness gracious, all the other schools to put up crazy numbers, but now you're going to hand the ball off to 30 or 40 times because Michigan is right there they're getting all the 5-star, 4-star running backs. And I don't know if they're getting all the receivers. I just don't see that it's an interesting one, but I mean, $8 million kind of, and it's just like the guy from Tennessee. What are you doing going out to UCLA? Like, your coach is known as one of the hottest offensive minds. He ain't going nowhere from Tennessee. He's going to fit the right guys into the system. He wins everywhere he's gone. What? And now you're making what? Not even half. I don't know. I hate to say this, but karma sucks. And
I think the market, what is interesting and is, I mean, like in business, they always say like, the market is always works itself out, meaning eventually it starts to work out. Like it says, somebody says, one person says, I don't think that guy's worth that. As soon as he makes that question and asks that question, what if we got someone that was half the price? Can he do what he does? As soon as that question gets answered and that person equals or exceeds what that person does, that's the end of that price point, right? So, like,
and they love football. They love football, and they present themselves the right way. Yeah, that hurt him.
That happened that happened in my alma mater. We brought in a player from Wisconsin, a quarterback. We paid him $150K.
Oh yeah, I know you're talking. Yep, I know you're talking about. It was Lyles, right?
Evers.
Evers. Yeah. Okay. Yep. I was trying because Lyles went somewhere else up there in the Northeast as well. And now already transferred out.
Yeah, and then Evers came in as the starter, got hurt, didn't play as well. The guy who was the backup he was already there for a couple of years, transferred from Maine, was paid nothing at the time, takes over, leads them to a 9-4 record, throws 20 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and he's the starter. And the other guy who they're paying is on the bench. Now I'm sure they're paying that kid something now. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure they're paying him something now. But now it's like a strange quandary because they have this person here. Who knows what he's going to do eventually? Maybe he's going to stay if he's getting paid and he doesn't care. Maybe he stays. Right?
Like the quarterback at Blue Mountain State, man. He just wanted to be there for the good time.
That's it.
I mean, you don't know. I mean, that's the thing is like these kids have also learned how to fake it to make it and say the right things, man. And you don't know, you don't truly know what they love. And so it might be one of those things that, man, I'm going to go make my quick buck and then I'm going to go and enjoy the life. And if I'm not a starter, that's great because I'm getting paid and I'm living the college life. I mean, that's the man story.
I can buy the drinks at the bar now, you know?
There it is.
That's it. Oh, man, that's a great point. Blue Mountain Sand's a great analogy. That's a great analogy. It's really interesting. Well, hey, Coach, it's been great having you on. We could talk to you all day. You've got a lot of great insight, and your energy is infectious. So we wish you much continued success. I'm sure Derek went back into practice or something there, and that's why he's gone. So we'll see you soon. And if you ever need anything, man, just reach out. We're glad to have you. If you ever want to come on and talk scheme or anything, we're glad to have you do that.
Absolutely, Coach. Thank y'all so much. And man, hopefully one day we can get out to New Jersey and get up with y'all and, see the beautiful state of New Jersey and what it's got. And I appreciate you having me on. I really had a good time. I mean, I looked up and I was like, hour and 15. I was like, I didn't feel like that. Cause when you're talking about something you love and have a passion for, and then talking with others from different insights and people that have the same, focal point and completely from a different area of the country, it makes you really feel good that maybe you're onto something. So I appreciate you very much. And I hope y'all have continued success as well.
Thanks so much, Coach Johnson. You have a great day, man.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Have you too.
All right. Bye. All right. That was fantastic podcast with Coach Johnson from Green Hope, and great job of talking football, talking recruiting, really understanding the process and really getting the most out of it. A lot of fun. That hour and 20 minutes flew by. Till next time, Coach Schuman.